Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. So it's I was going to say the morning after the night before, but it's actually the afternoon because I had a lay-in. But we're talking, of course, about the Riyadh card. 22nd of February will go down as, one of the great cards, obviously. It was an incredible spectacle. Even then, there were one or two people who left comments on my videos from yesterday saying, one guy, I don't know whether he was trolling or whether he was high or drunk or all of the above, but he was saying this was a shit card and, no one will remember these fighters in the next generation and generations to come and all this shit, I don't know. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but even the morons amongst us, or even the people who just don't know what they're looking at, or who just want to play Mr. Contrary because maybe it gives them a hard on. I don't know. But I thought it was an incredible card, an unbelievable card. And, it was trumpeted as being the greatest card ever. I am reluctant to sort of go that far because I'm old enough to remember a lot of those sort of Don King cards from the 90s, early 90s. And actually, they mentioned this in this week's Boxing News. And one example that they gave, which is a card I remember very, very vividly, was in 1994, May the 7th, and it was called The Rematches. Guess why? Because it had a lot of rematches on it amongst, world title rematches. And on that card alone, we had Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., obviously, Azuma Nelson, Terry Norris, Julian Jackson, Gerald McClellan, Simon Brown, Frankie Randall, Jesse James Lehar, and Ricardo Lopez, who all at the time were considered to be, in their respective divisions, either champions or top 5 contenders at least. So, there are some Hall of Famers there. Ricardo Lopez, Chavez Senior, Azuma Nelson, Simon Brown. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, Simon Brown, but he should be. Probably a great welterweight fighter from the 90s. McClellan, we know about the tragic ending to his career. Terry Norris, absolute killer at 154. Frankie Randall, first person to beat Chavez, had a very good career. But you can argue that's just a very good example of something that would rival what happened last night. But at the same time, let's not pretend that last night wasn't an incredible event. Now, just before it started, I was talking to Lee at Inside the Distance and his friend Dean. We were sort of WhatsApp messaging each other or whatever you call it. And we were talking about, is this too much of a good thing? Now, you've got to be careful because you don't want to sound cynical and you don't want to sound ungrateful. But some people, even if they really love boxing, they would find, 6 consecutive hours of boxing. Some people might find it a little bit excessive. So how about, not saying this would be a better thing. This is just an argument or a debate to be had. How about breaking it in half and having 4 of the fights, on one card and maybe 3 on the other? With the benefit of hindsight and being the age I am and remembering these marathons from the 90s, the Don King marathons, as I used to think of them as, I quite like the occasional card like this, where you really are sitting there for 6 hours and just going, right, what's on next? But you can make an argument for, maybe, like I say, breaking the card in half and making 2 events out of it. Because there is always a danger that you can become so gluttonous that you, in the end, let's say you enjoy, cream cakes. You may really love cream cakes and then you eat a dozen in a row and then you feel sick. And then you don't want to eat another cream cake for another year or whatever, or maybe you like a certain type of band or artist, and you want to go see them. And, you go to a gig and it's fucking great. This gig was fantastic. Oh, I love this gig, it really sticks in the mind. But then if you went on the whole tour and watched the same band night after night after night, it might even get repetitive. So there is an argument to be made about having smaller cards, not less quality, but less quantity. But having said that, after last night, I was on such a high Because I'm thinking, this is just unbelievable. I don't object to the occasional, 6 world titles in a row, 7 world titles in a row card. Occasional. I don't think it should become a regular thing, because then I think you might get a case of diminishing returns. But I should also point out that, as I've said before in these videos, I sort of grew up going to small hall shows. And very often, I mean, if you take the Goodwin shows that are often at the York Hall, you'll get, 12 fights in a row. I mean, a lot of them are, don't get me wrong, they're not all competitive. You'll get, your kids doing their little 40-36 decisions in 4-rounders to start with. But then you'll have, area title fights and maybe an English title fight as the headline or something like that. So if you're a boxing junkie like I am, you're kind of used to the long haul, to the marathons. Excuse me. But yeah, look, I mean, don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not sort of slagging anything off. I'm just putting it out there as a possible debate. Is it possible to have too much of a good thing? So there's that. And I think another argument for having such, an incredibly stacked, for questioning such an incredibly stacked card, is that what you end up with is a fight like Joshua Buatsi against Callum Smith, which was a fantastic fight. Really great fight. WBO interim light heavy title. Never mind that. I mean, I mentioned that, but there was something on. There was a belt on the line that puts you in the running for maybe a fight for the undisputed title. Smith, of course, has had that and lost. He got stopped by Beterbiev, but he came back. He defeated Buatsi on points. Great fight. Really, really good fight. What time did it start? 5:30. So it probably got lost in the mix. A lot of people who were, I mean, I know for a fact that, looking at the screen and looking at the crowd, a lot of people hadn't even taken their seats. So they would have missed that fight. And that fight, without a shadow of doubt, would have sold out, the O2 Arena as a headliner. And it would have been, probably the rematch is a great shout for having it, say, at the O2 in London as an example. Or maybe what's that co-op place? Where is that? Birmingham, Coventry or somewhere like that? Or Manchester. It's Manchester, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, wherever the hell it is, that co-op auditorium that they're talking about, and that all the boxers love and all the promoters are vying for. Stick it on there. And I'll tell you what, it'd bring the house down. Because that fight last night would have brought the absolute house down. We would be saying that's one of the fights of the year, even though we're only in February. So that was a great fight anyway. But it did kind of slip under the radar when you've got a card that's this stacked. Now, the only black mark to me in the whole evening was some of the judging. I mean, one of the guys had Buatsi 1-9. No, he had Smith up 119, 110. Ridiculously wide card. All right. I think I had this a draw or something. And looking, probably if I scored it again, maybe I'd go for one or the other. I'd probably go for Smith. At the end of the fight, before I looked at my card, I thought, Smith has got this by a couple of points. And then I totted up and I think I had it a draw. But the point is, this was not a 119, 110 fight. Absolutely ludicrous card. But even that stupidity was overshadowed by the draw, the gift draw for Hamza Shiraz against Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames flat out won that fight. And for Shiraz to get anywhere near, to get within sniffing distance of a draw was ridiculous. He won't deserve a draw as long as he's got a hole in his arse. All right, that was an Adames fight, clearly, and he is, fortunately, thank goodness, he escaped with his belt, his WBC middleweight belt. But he won that fight, and he'll have to make do with a draw. And does Shiraz deserve a rematch? Not in my opinion, but he's got the connection, so he might get it. Some people have said, have we overrated Shiraz? Some people in the comment section said that I was overrating him. With the benefit of hindsight, again, perhaps you're right. Perhaps you've got a point. Perhaps I was underselling Adames and expecting too much from Shiraz. Because so one guy said he didn't underperform. That's his level. I don't agree with that. I think he's got the talent to become a world-class fighter, Hamza Shiraz, but he definitely didn't show up last night. Frank Warren said he had a busted hand. I assume he means he broke it in the fight, in which case that hinders you. Of course it does. But if he had a hand injury going in, who cares? Don't get in the ring. You know, people are slagging off Daniel Dubois. If he was ill, he shouldn't go anywhere near the ring. Which, of course, brings us to, you know, the rather anticlimactic fight with Joseph Parker and Martin Bacoli. Now, Parker got a second round KO. Bacoli came in way overweight, 315 or 310, whatever he was, probably 20 pounds overweight at least 25 pounds maybe. And yeah, people say, okay, it went down as you would expect it to. Well, Joseph had a full camp. All credit to Joseph for doing what he had to do. But let's hang on a minute. You know, in that second round, Bacoli was getting close to Joseph, and he was giving him something to think about. I'm not saying he was really harming him or buzzing him, but he was getting closer, and he got clipped, which can happen. As we know, heavyweight boxing, it can happen. And I think, if you want my opinion, I mean, I didn't do a prediction for the fight because it was just too many intangibles and it was too late in the day to really break it down. We didn't know about Bacoli, really, but the state he came in, I would have said Joseph would have stopped him in about 6 anyway, you know, through sheer exhaustion, if nothing else. So credit to Joseph for doing what he had to do. Credit to Bacoli for stepping up to the plate. Some people have said, oh, he might have wrecked his career by taking that fight. I mean, it was life-changing money, so he wasn't going to turn it down. But here's the thing. Now that he's been chinned in a couple of rounds by Parker, people will probably say, I can do that too. And then they'll bump into a fit and ready and, you know, thinner Bacoli, and you'll see the real Martin Bacoli. I've always thought Bacoli is being somewhat overrated. That's not to say he's not good. He is good. But I think the Jared Anderson fight, it was a very good performance, and he's had some other good performances. But he does have that defeat on his record to Michael Hunter, and there was a fight he had against an Eastern European fighter. It's Kuzman, wasn't it? Sergei Kuzman, which I definitely thought he lost. He won a decision there, but I thought Kuzman easily won that fight, definitely. So Bacoli, I think, is somewhat overrated, but he's a lot better than he was yesterday for obvious reasons. And he can come back, and maybe people will fight him now. Maybe they won't avoid him. Maybe he'll get chances. And he's also made life-changing money. And talking of life-changing money, I hope Josh Padley got life-changing money, because his performance against Shakur Stevenson, he got stopped in 9 rounds. He was on the floor 3 times in the 9th round. Body punches were what did him. But I thought he did what every fighter should do, which is he left it all in the ring. And he was in there against a guy who, in terms of everything, experience, schooling, natural talent, you name it, was leagues ahead of him. And Padley fought his heart out, did what he's supposed to do, gave everything, and he can wake up this morning, hopefully with a big fat paycheck that's going to get him a nice house, buy a nice house for him and his family. Maybe he can, you know, quit his job as an electrician and be a full-time fighter. He's 29 now. Lovely stuff, great stuff. I hope he got some serious money. I think the excellent Turkey, who seems to treat fighters with respect, they all speak very highly of him. I hope that he really does Josh Padley proud and invites him back onto another Riyadh card, because he's had 2 already. Beat Mark Chamberlain, didn't he? And now he's was it Chamberlain? Yeah, yeah, you know, great performance, great effort, I should say. Shakur Stevenson, you could argue he took too long to get rid of Padley, but he's doing what he always does. He doesn't try to knock people out. He sort of toys with them, wins each round, and then lowers the boom when he feels they've been tenderised enough. So I'm not going to knock Stevenson. Not the most exciting fighter in the world, but still very, very good, and he's going to be very, very difficult to beat. Virgil Ortiz and Madrimov was not a particularly entertaining fight, because Madrimov did a lot of running. I say running rather than boxing on the back foot, because he was just skirting around the ring. I thought Ortiz won the fight. Madrimov, I thought, won rounds. It didn't surprise me that one guy had it 150, 2 of them, I think, had it 115, 130. I think I had that score, because Madrimov was pinching rounds, but you were kind of glad that Ortiz got the fight, because Madrimov, even though in the last couple of rounds he was forced to stand and fight, you know, did I have it 115, 113 or a draw? I can't even remember. But I thought Madrimov was winning rounds, and I was kind of begrudgingly giving them to him, because I thought, you know, I don't want to give them to him, but he is pinching the rounds. It's very unattractive type of style of boxing. It's not a good spectacle, and Ortiz is the one who wants to fight. Well, I think Ortiz did win, you know, as far as I'm concerned. if I did, I can't remember whether I had it a draw. I don't think I did. I think I had it. There were so many fights last night, I can't even remember what the fuck I did. But I was glad Ortiz won anyway, and he moves on. He's now undefeated. Well, he is undefeated. Big, heavy hands. Madrimov is, if he wants to go back on a Riyadh card, he's got to be more entertaining than that. Talking of entertainment, Zhilei, Zhang and Agit Kabayel. I picked Kabayel to win by stoppage in my preview. He did. He got it done quicker than I thought he would. Zhang, the worst gas tank in heavyweight boxing. He is 41 and he's a huge man. But after 4 rounds, he's knackered. And yes, he floored Kabayel with he's a southpaw, so it was a backhand left cross, basically. Had Kabayel on the floor. Kabayel, very good chin, got up, did what he did with Magmadov, and to a lesser extent with Sanchez, beat him up with body work. Beautiful body puncher, Agit Kabayel. Gives a clinic in body punching. Really, really, really pleased for the guy. Still undefeated. He's now undefeated in, I think, 26, is it? And he's a threat to anyone in the division. I'd love to see him face Usyk, because I think that would be intriguing, very intriguing, interesting fight. So well done to Kabayel. Zhang got found out a little bit. He's a threat, but at the same time, he'll always be a threat because he's so big and he hits so hard. But yeah, that's his 3rd defeat. Can he come back? You never know. I mean, he's entertaining to watch, isn't he? And who else have I missed out? Oh, of course, I've missed out the main event, which was one of the best fights. Will no doubt be one of the best fights of the year, and might even be the fight of the year. Magnificent spectacle between Beterbiev and Bivol. I picked Bivol in both their fights to win closely on a decision, and he got it yesterday, and he didn't get it the first time. It was Beterbiev. I have no problem with the first fight going to Beterbiev because it was very, very close, but I did think Bivol clearly won this fight. Yeah, and I've had a couple of people say, Beterbiev got robbed. And well, I mean, again, do you really know what you're looking at? Really? He got robbed, did he? He didn't lose a close fight. He got robbed, did he? I mean, take your head out of your ass and breathe a little bit of real air, And it's like Mark Twain's old comment about, better to keep your mouth shut and let people think you're stupid rather than open it and leave no doubt, right? But Bivol deserved that when it was a close fight, a tight fight. Can you make a case for Beterbiev winning by a point or two? Not for me. A draw? Not really. I definitely thought Bivol won this one. But in the middle rounds, Beterbiev was putting it on him. And the way he came back in the second half of the fight, I thought was magnificent. But I'm taking that away from Beterbiev. Great fighter. 40 now. Still makes 175 after being a 200-pounder in the amateurs. They've got to have a 3rd fight, haven't they? That's an absolute given. Absolute given. But those are my little afterthoughts regarding this. I think I've missed anyone. Have I missed anyone out? Yeah, I think that's about it. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think now that the dust has settled. And which rematches would you like to see? Who do you think deserves a rematch? And what about Padley and Bacoli coming in at late notice? What do you think of their performances? And again, I thought Bacoli was getting to Parker. It was very anticlimactic as Parker stopped him with one overhand right on the dome of the head, which scrambled his equilibrium. But that was shaping up to not a bad little interesting fight, at least for another few rounds. But credit to Joe Parker. But let me know what you think. Let me know. What about Smith versus Buatsi? Tell me you saw that fight, because if not, go and have a look at it now. It's brilliant. And yeah, comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button. Come on. It's your channel as much as mine. What a great bit of boxing, wasn't it? Could I get used to these? Was I being a bit too ungrateful earlier on when I made my comments? I don't know. But I tell you what, a couple of these a year, you wouldn't say no, would you? Anyway, I will speak to you soon. Looking forward to reading your comments, and bye for now.